stage where I'm starting to have like aches and pains.
Yeah.
And that was never a thing before. Like I'll be like, oh, my knee just kind of hurts. Like, what's going on? So I better do something. During the pandemic, I was not doing much. I was just like pretty inactive, and I kind of got out of shape. I think a lot of people did.
Yeah.
And so I've got myself on a good track again.
Cool.
Fortunately.
Good
And it also in the wine business, it can become you're eating and drinking all the time.
Right.
It's really easy to like think for things to get away from you.
That happened to me
health-wise.
when I was younger in the wine business. I woke up one day and I was like, wow, same height. I'm like, wow, you weigh 190 pounds. When did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Tastings and dinner every night.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're relatively inactive,
Yep.
it's
And I was
like, man,
doing
it's
nothing at that point.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then as you get older, everything slows down. So yeah. Good times.
Do you have a favorite comedian? Your favorite comedian? Who makes you laugh?
Man. One of the funniest stand-ups I ever saw was Dave Chappelle. I saw him live.
Oh, wow.
And I'm actually going to see him again in LA later I think at the end of April. So I'm looking forward to that. He's kind of controversial right now, but I still think he's hilarious. I love John Mulaney too.
Yeah. No, I still think Chappelle is.
Love
very
Conan
funny.
O'Brien. I mean, there's a lot. I like a lot of comedy.
Yeah. Good book. If you like comedy, I'm reading or listening to Bob Odenkirk.
Oh yeah,
He has a new book,
right?
Yeah. It's comedy drama,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't realize how much like comedy writing he did. And I'm like, so like he wrote for SNL.
Yeah. He was there during the same time like Conan O'Brien was.
Yes, yeah. He got consulted on who should take over for Letterman. He talks about that, and Conan called him, and they were playing basketball, and Conan asked him if he wanted to do it. Spoiler alert, and he was like, nah, and then obviously Conan ended up taking over. But yeah, so he's that whole crew, David Cross.
Mm-hmm.
That whole crew of comedians.
That book's on my list. I think it just came out.
It just came out, yeah,
like a week ago or something.
Yeah. So I picked it up.
You've read it, or
I'm listening to it. I'm
listening
Audible,
to it?
so I'm
Cool.
like and
Audible's great.
It is great. He was wrote for the Ben Stiller show. Janine Garofalo. I mean, I'm like, holy, he was in it.
Yeah,
he helps forge a lot of the comedy. So,
no,
and I love Better Call Saul. It's fucking great.
Yeah. Breaking Bad. His character from
yeah.
Breaking Bad. That was he's good. He's awesome. So I'm looking forward to reading that.
Yeah. Who would you most like to have a bottle of wine with?
Living or dead?
We have the flux capacitor, which has nothing to do with bringing people back to life, but living or dead, yes.
Ooh. God, there's so many people. I'd probably like. It'd be interesting to have a glass of wine with. God, man, it's hard to pick. It's hard to pick one. Let's come back to that question. I gotta think about that. I can't answer it quickly.
You broke the rules.
Okay.
No soup for you. No, okay, we'll go. All right.
I want to have a glass of wine with, bottle of wine with.
Todd, what we're going to do now.
There's too many people in the world.
Oh, well, there's billions of people in the world, but you only get to pick one.
Yeah, man, that's loaded. It's too political.
I'll tell you, I forgot. Someone said, and I agree with him, I wouldn't mind Richard Nixon, because he was a wine lover. I mean, and I want to be like, what was going on through your head, man? You thought you were going to get away with Robin Mordecai.
Well,
but he was a serious wine lover. He would put like fancy, he'd drink first growth Bordeaux, and he'd have people pour out. He'd have a bottle, they'd decant it, and then he would like fill the bottle with like some cheap wine for the guests, and then drink all of the the first growth for himself.
Well,
Tricky Dicky.
So there is somebody like, and I feel conflicted about it because. So Thomas Jefferson, right?
Yeah, no, but listen, we wouldn't have a wine like he's so vital to. I mean, yeah, he owned slaves, but everybody owned slaves back then,
right? But but it's like from a wine a wine enthusiast point of view, he was way into it.
Exactly,
an interesting person, historical figure who I think would be interesting to sit down and have wine with. I've thought about that from time to time, but then it's also like the whole slavery thing, and so it's like I don't know, but. If you're, take someone when he was minister of France, he traveled all through. He traveled to Bordeaux, traveled to Burgundy, northern Italy.
Yep.
So pretty interesting person to probably have.
And we're not talking. This is not hopping on a plane. This is some serious traveling like that.
Right.
You want to talk about being a wine enthusiast?
Yeah.
Like
no one visited those places.
Yeah.
Certainly not Americans.
no, I
So,
mean, it wasn't even a freak. I mean, shit. What was it? In 1976, people weren't even visiting wine country.
Right.
There were no tasting rooms
Right.
in Napa. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it's
so
like
the
really
guy,
recent.
and he went like in the 1770, you know. So like, that's kind of. Listen,
Pretty interesting.
even my black ass would sit down and have a bottle of wine. I'd be like, no. I brought you back.
Right.
I'm not working for you. We're
Right.
drinking wine.
Okay.
All right. So now we're going to turn our attention to the 10 questions made famous by James Lipton from inside the Actors Studio. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but
Oh yeah.
yes.
It's been a while.
Todd, what is your favorite word?
Favorite word the word I probably say more than anything else is just shit.
Okay. What is your least favorite word?
No.
What turns you on?
I love great wine. I love being outdoors. I love kind of anything sort of intellectual and pleasurable. I guess food and wine are, such a big part of my life, and some things that I love, and art in general.
Okay. What turns you on?
Did you just ask me that?
Did I just ask you that?
I think so.
Yeah, I did. Well, this is why we do
Deja
this.
vu.
Did I?
Glad you were paying attention.
Oh my God! What turns you off?
I think just intolerance and hatred, general negativity.
What turns you off? No, I did that one over.
Oh man!
No, are you ready? Next one is, what sound or noise do you love?
Actually, love to hear my dogs barking. Yeah, and excitement.
You don't have truffles. She will bark for. Me and my wife were away, and we got a text from one of our neighbors. They're like, "Is your dog okay? She's been barking for 2 hours." I was like,
That's not so good.
No, but that's my girl.
I just love hearing my dogs when I have 4 dogs. So like when I come home.
Oh
I
yeah,
kinda
like
go crazy.
there's not. I mean, that's the best. I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, like with truffles, I was gone for 48 minutes. Like
Uh-huh.
whether it's 48 minutes or 4 days, it's like the same reaction.
I was never a dog person growing up, and then now I love dogs so much. They're amazing.
Yeah. What sound or noise do you hate?
My dog's barking.
Mhm.
No. What sound do I hate? I'm not particularly fond of the sounds on a bottling truck for wine. It's a lot of clanging and banging and loud jarring noises that sound very industrial. Don't really like that.
So this would seem redundant, but it's not because it's a different question, but you've kind of answered it. What is your favorite curse word?
Yeah.
Yeah, shit.
Just shit.
Yeah.
Shit.
And shit is like fuck. It's like
Yeah, shit and fuck are like,
yeah,
you
it's
can
like
use them in so many
shit.
different.
Yeah, you can use so many. The intonation changes.
Yep.
You know,
You can use them in
don't
a lot
do
of
that
different
shit.
instances. Yep.
What the shit?
That is shit.
I don't give two shits.
This is shit. That's
Yeah.
shit.
Shithead.
Oh shit.
Mister, don't know that dog. Lifesaver. Call him shithead. Shithead, come on. That's way before you were born. Todd gets it. Go home and watch The Jerk. Steve Martin. It's amazing. Great wine
Great
movie
film.
too.
Yep. Oh man.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I'm into a lot of different things actually. Like one thing, I'm a private pilot. I love to fly.
Mm-hmm.
Aviation's always been really interesting. I also almost went into the Foreign Service instead of going into winemaking.
Like Jason Bourne, Foreign Service.
That's like CIA. No. So like working in embassies and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I went through the
Jason Bourne, Foreign Service.
I went through the selection
Wow.
process at the State Department
Wow.
and everything, but barely didn't get in. And then that was when I decided to really go into winemaking hardcore. And yeah,
Very
here
cool.
I am. Something that would have taken me like around the world.
Around the world, yeah.
Yeah.
What profession would you not like to do?
I don't think I'd want to clean septic tanks. I'm glad there's people that do it, but I don't. Think
I
wanna
know,
do that.
and I thank you for people who, and I like my garbage men. They're so nice.
Mhm.
They wave. They actually put. I'm one of the few people. They actually put my my bin back on my grass. They don't just throw it in the street. But I don't know. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
The smells when they pull up to my house, and they're just there. All that's what they do all day, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. Yeah. All right. And lastly, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I remember Johnny Depp answering this question on Inside the Actors Studio, and he said, "Wow." That was his answer. And I kind of thought that was a good answer, so I'm going to go with that.
That is right, because like we said, if he exists, like you get like, oh shit, you do exist.
Yeah, maybe I think probably what I'd get is just like a big head shake, like.
Well, this was fun. If you want more of Todd, and I know you do, make sure you tune into our episode of the Black Wine Guy Experience. Peace. Hey, everybody. What's up? It's your boy, MJ. Welcome to the Black Wine Guy Experience. My guest today is one of a select few 100-point winemakers in Washington State and winemaker with Force Majeure, Holocene, Weathereye, PASXA, and The Walls. Welcome, Todd Alexander.
Hi.
Previously, Todd was the winemaker for acclaimed cult winery Bryant Family in Napa Valley. He began his career in the Napa Valley at esteemed wineries, including Cade and PlumpJack. Todd holds a winemaking certificate from UC Davis and has worked with some of the best and brightest in the wine industry, including vineyard manager David Abreu and winemaking consultant Michel Rolland. He has a passion for single vineyard and terroir-driven wines. Again, welcome, Todd. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think you got it. We're ready to wrap.
Okay, cool.
So you said it all.
So remember to check your sponsors. Oh, okay. So here's the part where I would normally ask the guest, hey, tell us a wine we'll be drinking this afternoon. But, Todd is like the one winemaker who just doesn't come pack and heat. So fortunately, I had a bottle.
I'm always unprepared.
I know. I had a bottle of, it's 2013 La Petite Chapelle Hermitage by Paul Jabolet. So we're gonna drink some Syrah, and it's pretty nice opening up. And
thanks for sharing it.
My pleasure, of course. I mean,
that was all part of my plan.
I
Actually,
know. Listen, he's like, motherfucker, you know how much wine I've sent this guy? He can bring me a bottle.
It's like, man, just grab something from your collection. Now you've got them.
So, yeah, let's. And this is the thing about Todd. I don't know. Todd must have either saw on IG Live. It was my podcast, but literally one day during the pandemic, we're talking 2020 pandemic because we're technically probably still in a pandemic. I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving any advice here.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like kind of ambiguous now.
Right.
What are we doing?
Well,
what's happening?
We're worrying about people getting slapped at the Oscars. And,
Yep.
Well, there is a war going on. That is huge.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
But so yeah. So
pandemic-wise, though, it's a kind of a question mark.
It really is. People are just kind of, I think, fatigued.
Yeah.
But I don't know where, like, I think you were on my mailing list, but one day this box of wine shows up, and it's a mixed case of all your stuff. And I remember I went to the DM, and I just thanked you. And I knew about your wines. I'd never tried any of your wines, and the whole case. I mean, we'll get into this, but this guy he runs a gamut of Burgundian varietals to Bordeaux varietals to Rhone varietals to some other shit. I'm sure he's experimenting with that. We'll find out about Spanish varietals because there's a Tempranillo Stanley Groove. I mean, so crazy. But we start at the beginning. Where'd you grow up, Todd?
So I grew up kind of all over. I was actually born in Montgomery, Alabama, and my dad was in the military in the Air Force, so moved around quite a bit growing up. But I kind of consider roots to be mostly Texas because my parents are both from there, and my extended family's all there, and that was kind of the one constant place growing up that I always went back to a couple times a year.
Yeah.
And all my family's there. My parents live there again now. So, but I lived in Florida, Indiana, Ohio, Arizona, and in Texas growing up. And I was only in Alabama for like 2 weeks, so
Okay.
I was born there, but then we moved pretty much right away.
Yeah.
So,
where in Texas is your family? What's your family live?
they're in northeast Texas, about 100 miles east of Dallas, in a town called Mount Pleasant.
Okay.
It's a small town. There's not a lot there. It's a cool place. A lot of agriculture. My grandparents on kind of both sides were farmers, and I had a grandfather who was also a businessman. He had 2 restaurants in the 40s and 50s. And I go back and visit every year, and it's a really beautiful part of Texas, northeast, kind of rolling hills and East Texas.
Nice.
It's really pretty there.
Nice. So you said Dad was in the Air Force.
Mhm.
Did your mom do anything, or was she just stay-at-home mom?
My mom was a stay-at-home mom,
Nice.
yeah, until when I was in middle school. Then she started working. When we weren't so young, she had to like take care of us. So, yeah, she was just a stay-at-home mom for a long time. She was awesome, very selfless person, and she pretty much took care of my brother and I have one brother. He's about 4 years older than me, and my dad worked. Very kind of classic structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
To the home.
Was he disciplinarian because of the military, or was it kind of a strict home?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I think it's part of the reason my brother and I kind of rebelled. It was pretty strict growing up. He was I have a great relationship with him, but growing up it was a little bit contentious at times, and I think my brother and I did things that like he didn't want us to do. And he could be a little bit controlling or try to be, but we just didn't really we didn't conform to that, and we were like, we're gonna push back, and so he finally stopped, and he realized, everything's okay, you're not gonna ruin your life.
Yeah.
So but he was pretty strict growing up. My mom was kind of the opposite, so I had this interesting dynamic growing up of a kind of authoritarian parent and a parent that was like, you can do whatever you want. So it was confusing. We're not going too far into therapy though.
Right now. Man. I just always think I just thought of the movie. I don't know if you've ever seen The Great Santini with Robert Duvall.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the dad just bounced the basketball off his head. I hope your dad didn't do that. But
no.
But
close.
But yeah, I've heard from people the same story from friends who, like, a lot of people whose parents were in the military. They're like, it was cool because they moved around. Some people like moving around,
I didn't know anything different.
Yeah.
I kind of think about it now, and part of me wishes like we would have just been in one place, but I feel like it was a benefit to have gone different places. And I didn't live internationally or anything. We could have, but my dad wanted to keep us in the United States and not take us abroad. And it was, I just didn't know anything different. So to me, it was exciting. I remember we moved from Ohio to Arizona, and I was like, Arizona, this is like 1989. And I'm like, all that's there is like sand dunes, right? Like, well, I don't know what's there. I had no idea, and I couldn't look it up. There's no internet,
I know.
What did we do back then?
We're called encyclopedias.
Yeah, I know.
And newspapers.
Yeah, in imagination.
Yeah.
You had to.
Oh my God.
So it was kind of an adventure moving all that way and to a completely new, unknown place that I never had seen, and then what I realized was it's really hot, and I was like, I got to get out of here. Got to get out of here. No, Arizona's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. So you mentioned, was your grandfather owned 2 restaurants in the 40s or 50s?
Yeah.
What type of restaurants did he own?
They were like diners.
Okay.
Yeah. My grandfather had a 3rd grade education, and he had to basically drop out of school to help his family. That was just how it was back then. He was born in 1907.
Oh, so Great Depression.
Yeah.
Yep. And he knew it because he was old. He wasn't like 2 years old.
Yeah.
He was in it.
Yeah. So he didn't have a big education, but he was a smart guy, and he bought land and he invested in land, and he had a couple of restaurants. He was a successful and respected businessman in Mount Pleasant. I didn't get to know him really well. He passed away when I was a kid, but I remember him. But I think about him quite a bit, and there's a building in downtown Mount Pleasant that has our last name on it. He owned the building, and it's kind of cool. He was a big part of downtown. There's a street named after him and stuff.
Well, that's really cool,
Yeah,
man.
it is cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but he wasn't like, he wasn't like slinging wine.
Right.
Unfortunately.
What about your parents? Did they ever have wine? Did you have wine? Did your parents have wine when you were growing up?
Not anything really great. My older brother kind of got me into wine. Italian wine. And my dad was always drinking wine, but he wasn't drinking. He wasn't like a wine collector. He kind of is now, but his thing was more honestly like whiskey.
Yeah.
And some like cheap wine.
Okay. So like, where did you graduate from high school, and then where'd you go to undergraduate?
Yeah, I graduated from Canyon-Doloro High School in Tucson, Arizona, and then I went to the University of Arizona.
That's right in Tucson.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, listen. The good sports, man. Good basketball.
Yeah, good basketball team. Although they were a number 1 seed, and then they
so was Kentucky.
Lost a Sweet 16.
We took Kentucky down. No, Kentucky was a 2, but yeah, they did lose. I always root for Arizona. I liked those teams, even though I'm not from there. I just like the way they played.
Yeah.
Sean Elliott's squad.
I was there when Lute Olson was the coach, and I was there when we won the national championship, and that was really exciting.
Was that the Miles Simon was on that team? Yeah.
Yeah, Mike Bibby, Miles Simon, all those guys, Michael Dickerson. And then later, Luke Walton came, and somebody who I've become friends with, Channing Frye.
I was gonna say Channing Frye went there.
Yeah, and he lives in Portland, and we're kind of friends now. And I used to go watch him play, and he's awesome.
Shout out to Channing. Channing and I did an IG Live. The Chosen Wines it's a nice project. They're doing some good work up there.
It is. Yeah, it's a really cool project.
Yeah. That's so cool. That's really cool that you watched them play, and now you guys are like wine buddies.
We're wine buddies. The wine world's interesting like that. There's a lot of people with a lot of different backgrounds, and the common thread is wine, and it really brings a lot of different people together. I think it's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool. One of the things I like about it.
So, what did you major in at U of A?
Yeah, I have a degree in history with a minor in art history and linguistics.
Oh, you were going to be a teacher.
I was going to go to grad school. Teaching, I don't know if I'd be a good teacher, but I thought about doing grad school, and I don't know. I thought for a while I was going to maybe go to the Foreign Service, and that's what was going to be my career path. And then kind of right when I was wrapping up, I realized I had kind of an epiphany where I was like, winemaking. So I'm a musician too. And that's going back to you asked me a question, another profession that you'd like to do. And a musician, like being able to earn a living doing that would have been amazing.
What did you play? What instruments did you play?
I started playing guitar, and I actually played in a band. I played in a few bands, but I did play in an indie rock band that kind of toured. We toured the U.S. and put an album out on a small label, and I made a run at it, but it didn't work. It's hard. It's tough business.
It's no joke. But that's pretty cool, though. But it's one of those things. Like, think about how many people have played instruments, had a band, actually got to put out an album, and actually tour the country. People might play gigs in town. So you know thyself. You stop, but it's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, it was really fun. And when we were touring, even though it could be one night where you're playing a place. I played CBGB here in New York.
Jeez,
awesome.
How many people played CBGBs? Right?
I know. I loved being able to say I played there before it was gone.
Because it's gone, right?
It's gone. But while it was going on, I was like, I don't care, even if we never quote unquote make it, which I didn't want to be like a huge band. I just wanted to be able to have enough, just make a living doing it, basically. I thought, man, so lucky to just be able to do this right now and enjoy it while I'm young. This is my early 20s, so it was really fun. It was really exciting. But what I was saying is I've always been kind of a quote unquote creative person. I'm always drawn to like music or visual art, things like that. So when I kind of discovered winemaking, it felt like it would be a good fit. It felt like something that I would enjoy, because I used to worry like I'm gonna end up doing something I hate. That's kind of like what everybody's fears, It's like I'm gonna do something in my life I'm just earning a living and I'm not really happy and enjoying it. So
what a shitty term, earn a living.
right.
Wait, so I have to go to work to
But
be
that's
alive?
that's a lot of people's
I
reality,
know.
though.
I know.
Unfortunately.
Everybody's working for the weekend, so they
Right.
get those 2 days off, right?
That's right. So they
and
can do things they want to do. So I'm really lucky that I found winemaking because I mean, it's the dream. It's like you don't feel like you're working because you love it,
right.
So I'm really fortunate.
So you mentioned a few moments ago that your older brother kind of got you into wine.
Mm-hmm.
How did he get you into wine?
Yeah, so him being a little older than me, we were roommates for a time before he went to the Navy. He went to the Navy and ended up flying. He flew F-14s.
Oh, shit.
So that was pretty amazing. But before that...
So wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, taking off and landing on the boat?
On aircraft carrier, yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy to look at. You actually know someone that your brother's done that.
Yep. I know, it is crazy. It's even crazier. Like, he graduated from the University of Arizona as well, and his degree was in English.
Oh, wow.
And then one day, and specifically like 19th century British literature was like his focus.
That's pretty niche.
Yeah, and then we were roommates, and he came home one day and he goes, I joined the Navy. And I'm like, what? Like, we literally never, ever talked about it at all. And we were kind of like, not like we're going to go to the military, because our dad was military, and we're like, I'm not going to go down that road,
Can't work for that corporation.
And he's like, I went and took some exams, and like, I can fly. I can do flight school if I can just hack it, And I was like, okay. He had long hair, and he shaved his head, and like 3 months later, he's gone out the door, gone to Florida, went to OCS, Officer Candidate School, passed that, and then he was in a class with like 35 people or something, all trying to be pilots and all trying to fly, and there's only 2 fighter jet positions for everybody, and he's in there with people with who've been wanting to do this, like aeronautical engineering degrees and stuff.
You got Goose.
Yeah, right. And he got fighters, and he got F-14s. There's only 2 F-14 slots, so he had to outcompete all these people. So I'm super proud of him about that.
I'm having a conversation with you. I can tell how intelligent, but super intelligent, because like you said, like, people generally come from an engineering background. Or mathematics or computer science to do that stuff. You know what I mean? So that's
exactly, yeah. And he had an English degree, and he's like had to just crash course, like figure all this stuff out and learn it, and then he did it. So kudos to him. But like, going back to your question, when we were living together, he would bring bottles of wine home, and he had like a little Italian wine collection. It was nothing like crazy wild. It was just good enough that it was kind of like, what's this? This is different. This is really good. Mm-hmm. And then just kind of got the wheels turning. And then I met Carrie, my wife now, and she had lived in Napa. I met her when I was living in Tucson, and she had worked in Napa. And so she started opening up bottles for me. It was just kind of like blew my mind a little bit. And then that was when I kind of really decided that this is what I want to do. And I did a trip to Bordeaux, and not specifically for wine, but just to check out France, and kind of went through there. And I remember I was on the train, like looking out the window, watching people in the vineyards working. And I was like, it seems like obvious, but it's like, this is a thing. This is a thing. This is a thing that I could do. I have no idea how to get into it, but I can figure it out. And so here we are.
So that trip to Bordeaux, did you visit any chateau?
No, not that trip.
Okay.
That was just, I went to a village called Saumur in the Loire Valley. Yep. Mm-hmm. I went there, and it was just stunningly beautiful. And I had some wines from the region. This is going back a long time. This was 20 plus years ago. And then took a train down to Bordeaux, and actually rented a car in Bordeaux to go. We rented a house for like a week, a little farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere. And did nothing wine related, but it just got the wheels turning when I was seeing how many, because it was my first time going to Bordeaux. And have you ever been there?
I haven't been yet.
You can see, I mean, it's incredible the amount of vineyards there are. They just go on forever. Mm-hmm. And it's really impressive. And it's like in France, or you can take Italy too, or Spain even. Wine is kind of a way of life. It's a little different than it is here in most places. You know?
Totally.
So that really had an impact on me and rubbed off on me, and made me realize that there's a whole different way of life, a whole different, not I won't say lifestyle, but this creative endeavor that people have been undertaking for centuries, both in the vineyards and the wineries. It's awesome from an agricultural standpoint because it ties back to my family's history as farmers, and then there's a really awesome creative side to it that's like your own expression of whatever you're working with, whatever vineyards you're working with or fruit you're working with. So it's satisfying on an agricultural level, scientific level, and artistic level. And I had that first kind of epiphany that it is all those things. And I don't think of it as a product or a beverage. It's something different. It's a time capsule, So that first trip to Bordeaux was, that was coming back from that. In France in general, I would say, was when I decided, like, well, I want to go and try and figure this out. But I already finished my degree, and so it's like, how am I going to get into it?
Yeah. So what was your next step?
So I actually went to Texas, and I went because I had family there, and I went through an associate program in winemaking, and I worked at a winery in Texas for a couple of years because I felt like, and I was wrong, but at the time I thought going to California seemed a little bit daunting because it's so competitive, and I was like, I can't go in there blind, and I'm not going to go do a master's program, I think, at Davis. I didn't have the time for that. I needed to work. So associates was doable, and because I had already had my bachelor's degree, so it was really easy to just transfer all the general ed stuff and just focus on the core classwork. And so that got me the chemistry and the science background that I needed. And then working, while I was doing that, also working at a winery in Texas, a couple of wineries.
Which ones?
I'm not going to mention them.
Okay. Okay.
Because they're not. I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah, you're not going to mention.
It wasn't.
He's not going to mention.
It was not great.
I think
that's actually why I want to go to California, because I was like, okay, if I want to get really serious about this is not the place to be doing it. And it's different now than it was then. There's some really good stuff, but back in at the time, I was like, I remember watching some people load Chardonnay into a press, and there were these big, like hornworms, like green caterpillars on top of the fruit, and they were just dumping everything in the press. And I was like, do you want to maybe sort those out? And he's like, they just disintegrate. And I'm like,
into
cool.
the wine.
I'll never drink that. Yeah. So I was like, this isn't.
I mean,
because
enough insects, just so you guys know, slip through even when you are sorting grapes. It's an agricultural product, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But like just some big gnarly green caterpillars.
This was something you could have easily taken out.
Yeah.
And it was just pure like laziness.
Oh.
And that not good.
Yeah.
So then I went to, after a couple of years, I learned my way around the cellar and kind of learned general operations. Then I was off to California and off to Napa, and then I got Tony Biaggi.
So how did you landed in Napa? Where'd you go?
I went to PlumpJack.
Okay.
First.
Now, how did you like why PlumpJack? Like is there there's always some crazy story. There's got to be some, like, did you write them a letter? Send them facts?
I applied to a handful of wineries, and I interviewed with Tony and Todd. I'm going to stop you real quick, because we have all levels. I mean, I know like people like you at winemakers, but there could be listeners who don't know who Tony Biaggi is. No, okay, yep. So Tony Biaggi, he was the winemaker at PlumpJack when I worked there. And now he's with Hourglass, Patria Wines, and he consults on a number of other projects as well. He's awesome, really great winemaker, super fun guy, big personality. So he's been someone who I've been friends with since I moved to California and still am now, But yeah, I worked with him. And I was doing that for a few years, and then I transitioned over to Bryant Family. There was an opportunity there, and I threw my hat in the ring and got hired on. And then,
so again, for the listeners out there, so first of all, PlumpJack weren't they the first like premium wine to use a corkscrew in the valley?
A screw cap.
Screw cap, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
They
corkscrew dummy. Screw cap. Thank you.
Yeah, they I think it was maybe 95 or 96. They bottled half the Cabernet with corks and half with screw cap, and it was going to be like a 10-year experiment. And I believe they're still doing it now. And I was there when their sister winery, Cade, had also just started. So I was working on Cade and PlumpJack wines at the same time, 2 different facilities. And Cade was kind of the same thing, like some screw cap enclosures. And PlumpJack, though, at the time, great wines, great Cabernet, and it was a really cool place to work. And working at Cade when it first started was awesome. It was a brand new facility, a brand new brand. So, great place to kind of get my feet in the door in Napa. It was awesome.
And so then over to Harlan, which is like was one of the biggie cult wines. I mean, like
I was at Bryant.
Bryant. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, where's Bryant? I remember Harlan, Bryant. Where's Bryant in the valley? Where's their property?
It's in St. Helena, but if you go, I don't know if you know where Lake Hennessy is, Sage Canyon Road. So it's if you're on Silverado Trail, you take Sage Canyon Road, you head east, drive maybe, I don't know, it's kind of near Colgan and Continuum and Chapelet. It's in that whole area.
Oh, so it is in that kind of, well,
it's called Pritchard Hill.
Yeah, I thought so. It was also on Pritchard
Hill. It's on
right?
Pritchard Hill, yeah. And now Chapelet owns the trademark for the name Pritchard Hill. So like Bryant, no one can use that.
Well, I would tell people.
But we call it Pritchard Hill.
But it's so funny because that, like, the Chapelets were there way before those guys. Yeah. But then, like, when the cult wines came out, then it'd be like, oh, Pritchard Hill. So good for the old OGs for like, no,
Yeah. They snagged the trademark on that a long time ago, and they have a wine called Pritchard Hill. Yeah, and it's delicious. And my wife Carrie worked with Molly Chapelet for a number of years and was her assistant. And they're awesome people and make great wines. So they're our neighbor, just kind of right behind Bryant Family on the hill. And Bryant was kind of out there by itself. And it was an incredible place to work. I'm really fortunate that I worked there when I did. I worked with Helen Keplinger, and she's amazing. She's a great mentor to me. And she actually was consulting on Force Majeure when I first started and first moved up. Because I kind of took her to lunch one day and was like, I'm thinking about moving up to Washington, And she's like, I totally think you should do it, I was kind of asking people, what do you think? Should I do this? Because it was a big change. Yeah.
So when you worked at Bryant, you were assistant to Helen, and then you became the winemaker.
Yep.
And then you're GM. So what does a GM do? Were you still making the wine, or did you hire him?
No, I was still making the wine. I was winemaker and general manager. It's Bryant's a small winery at the time. Now I think they have a bigger team, but at the time, you didn't really need that much. We had kind of an office admin, cellar master, assistant winemaker, and I took on the GM duties when the GM that was there left. And it was just kind of overseeing the day-to-day and shipments and just making sure the wheels are turning and things are getting done. So it wasn't like a huge job that needed to be done. And I'd been working there enough and been involved in all aspects, not just the winemaking stuff, but all aspects of like fulfillment, because Bryant, you do all your own in-house fulfillment. So everything's, the vineyard's there. Worked with some of David Abreu's vineyards, but everything's bottled there. You have your own bottling line. Everything's shipped straight out of the winery. There's no like middleman.
Yes, DTC, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But some people, after bottling, some wineries will ship their wine off to a warehouse, and then that company that warehouses it does the fulfillment. But at Bryant, it was like, you packed every box and palletized everything. The trucks came to the winery and picked the wine up and went straight to people's houses. So that was a big part of the cellar master there. Really took the lead on that, but that was a big responsibility at Bryant. It's a lot of stuff to keep up with, and then on the compliance side, it's a lot of work too. Yeah.
So when did you? So you mentioned Helen and Tony as mentors. When did you meet Michel Rolland?
Well, I met Michel Rolland at Bryant.
Okay.
So he at the time would come a few times a year, just do blending. So, and that guy is an incredible blender. I mean, he's the maestro. I put together some preliminary blends. We would sit down for like 4 hours and taste through all the wines of that vintage that we're trying to put together. And, he would I remember I was really proud. The 2012 vintage, you know, I had assembled this blend. I put it in front of him. He's like, I don't think that I can improve on this. And then he's like, but we'll try. And so he starts like, you know, getting surgical with it. And we try a few different things. And he's like, no, yours is better. And so we kept it. And I was very proud of that. And then, but with the Patina bottling that we were doing at the time, which is a parallel to Bryant Family, but it's from three of David Abreu's vineyards. It's a blend from his sites as opposed to being the estate Bryant wine. I was like, I'm having a harder time with this, and he kind of goes through it. Just made a couple of subtle changes, and it really just totally changed the wine. And I'm a huge believer in, you know, what in blending. I mean, blending is so important in winemaking. Having options to blend to create the best wine you can. Even if it's a single vineyard, you still need different lots that you can work with later on. So all your eggs aren't in one basket, and then consistently every year you can put together a great wine. That was something I learned from Michel Rolland, or realized through working with him.
So let's unpack that a little bit. Like you said, even in a single vineyard wine, you would have different lots. What does that look like?
Well, so you know, imagine. You don't really have to imagine. Well, I guess, I mean, like if you take Bryant Family or even Force Majeure, like the Force Majeure estate vineyard, it's planted. There's a lot of Syrah, and there's a lot of Cabernet. So you're not bringing in all the Syrah all at the same time, for example. Like it's not like, okay, we're going to pick all the Syrah on Wednesday. All of it's coming in. It's like I might start picking Syrah in late August or early September, depending on the vintage and what the weather's been like. And I might not finish picking Syrah until October. So I'm picking a little bit here, a little bit there, through different spectrums of ripeness and physiological development. And then I'm doing different things with them. Maybe I'm doing whole cluster. Maybe I'm co-fermenting with Viognier. Maybe I'm destemming. Maybe I'm using new oak. Maybe I'm using neutral oak. And then you fast forward through élevage a couple of years, or 18 months or whatever it is, and you sit down with these various lots, and one lot might be a single barrel, one lot might be 10 barrels, depends on how big your picks are and how big your tank size is and all that. And then you start to taste through everything, and you start to get an idea of how it comes together and how you can make a very complete wine that has like freshness, opulence, length, and deliciousness, and it's indicative of that site and that vintage. I think you see a lot of people that are like, if you make a single block wine, maybe you just get one pick.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. There's no blending involved. And I do that sometimes too. But when it comes to like estate winemaking, what I want to do is really have enough material to work with that you can blend, you can declassify stuff, kind of like Le Petit Chapelle that we're having now. It would have been a similar situation for that. They would have had their quote unquote top wines going into La Chapelle, and then what's declassified goes into this. So there's a very similar method at Bryant Family in place, and there's a very similar method at Force Majeure and Pasha and other things that I work on. Try to do that.
All right, we know what, this is actually a good time to take a quick break, and then we'll talk about the move up to Washington State. All right, so we'll be right back, everybody. Okay, we're back. So you sat down with Helen, and what year was that? Was that 2014, 2012?
Oh, for Washington?
Yeah.
That was 2014.
2014. And you said to her, I'm thinking about moving up there, and she said, I would if I were you, something to that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and I talked to a few other people too, because the first time I went up to the Pacific Northwest, I just loved it. I loved the Willamette Valley. And I had tasted some wines from Washington that I really liked. I remember, it's kind of a funny story. I bought this bottle of K. Vintner's The Boy Grenache. I think it was the 2008 vintage. And I bought it at St. Helena Wine Merchant. And I took it home, and Karen and I drank it. And I was like, this is really good. What's going on up there? So I started looking up K. Vintner's, and I was looking at I knew the other guys like Betts and Quilceda Creek and Leonetti, and I'd already know, and Cayuse. But I just kind of went, this is a different kind of Grenache profile than what we typically see in California. Fast forward to now, I'm working with that exact fruit, you know,
Oh,
the
wow.
same fruit that went into that bottle. I'm now working on. It doesn't go to Cade Vintners anymore. It goes to Pasha, the Walls. So that's the River Rock Grenache.
Okay, that's really
So it's pretty cool the way that kind of came full circle.
That is a fucking good bottle. I did one of my drunken wine reviews. I was like, this is a really fucking good bottle of wine.
I love that.
Yeah. I was like, I gotta go live. It's so fucking good.
You should do more of that.
I do need to do more, but I'm working now, man. So
Okay.
But I do need to do more of those. Those are like, people love those.
Oh, it's hilarious.
They're the best. They're real.
It's real.
You know, it's not like.
Yeah,
Kirsch,
trying to be all pretentious.
I'm like, fucking, look at the color. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I opened this 4 hours ago. Shit's getting bad. I mean, that's how I drink wine.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, yeah. Just to go back to your story though, before, or your question, I was after I'd gone to the Willamette in 2011. I was kind of like, maybe eventually we end up moving north after spending some time in Napa. I knew if I was going to leave Bryant, I didn't want to like stay in Napa necessarily. I was like, I'd rather go kind of apply what I've learned somewhere new. Mm-hmm. And in 2013, I went on a trip with Segue-Moreau Cooperage to France, and there was some Washington winemakers on the trip too.
Okay.
Specifically a guy, Mark McNeely, who owns Mark Ryan Winery, and his winemaker, Mike McMorrin. And I started talking to them about Washington. I kind of kept in touch after the trip, and after Harvest 2013, I reached out and I was like, hey, what's going on up in Washington? Anything I'm thinking about making a move, maybe anything going on that might be interesting? And Mike was kind of like, yeah, actually Force Majeure might be looking for someone. They had a brand, they had a vineyard, but they didn't have like an estate winemaking program. They needed someone to kind of come in there and create that. So that was right up my alley. So the timing was really good, and they were angling to be, they were trying to do things that were different and trying to do things that other people weren't doing. Like, I know it sounds kind of obvious, but like not a lot of people in Washington at the time were planting on hillsides. It was a lot of like flat vineyards, very easy to farm, and Force Majeure had gone up on the side, Red Mountain, and on the side of a hill, it's a steep rocky hillside, and they'd planted high density Syrah on stakes, and that to me was pretty compelling and interesting. And I was like, okay, I see the right mindset here and the willingness to try to do something different. So I was introduced to Paul McBride, who owned the vineyard, and we partnered up, decided that I would come up there and we'd get this thing going. So we did, and now we have 3 estate vineyards. We just built a new winery in Walla Walla. The first few years, I was living in Seattle, and I was working out of a warehouse in Woodinville, just making the first Force Majeure estate wines there while we decided where we wanted to kind of plant our flag in the ground. And ultimately, we ended up on the Oregon side of the Walla Walla Valley in the Rocks district, and we bought an old school. It was built in 1940, and we're renovating it now. And then the whole winery is about 12,000 square feet now. It's all new build, and it's really a great facility, and we're working on the hospitality space right now. That's going to be the 1940 schoolhouse. We're renovating that, and it's about to open like at the end of the month. We host people by appointment. So, and then we have another. I'm probably getting too far ahead, but we have another vineyard for Force Majeure in an area called the North Fork that I'm really excited about. It's a 2,000 foot elevation, whereas like the Red Mountain site's about 900 to 1,200 feet. So the North Fork area is kind of a new frontier in Walla Walla, and higher elevation in the foothills of the Blue Mountains, a lot more rainfall, and a lot cooler and more moderate. So we've planted Syrah and Viognier in there, and it'll be another like single vineyard Syrah will be coming out, but it'll be a while for that. Anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent.
That's what we do here. It's long form podcast, and we can do that. So
edit it out.
Nah, we don't edit, man. That's why I make you sign a waiver.
Oh shit!
You know, so
I said
you
so many things I shouldn't have said.
See, that's why you didn't badmouth them Texas wineries, man.
I kind of did.
I know you did, but they don't. They listen. Only they know who they are.
Hey,
so
you know what?
okay.
It's all out of love. I just want them to be better.
There you
Come
go.
on, guys.
Exactly. Come on, guys.
Take the caterpillars out.
So, prior to moving up to Washington State, had you worked with anything but like Bordeaux varietals? Like, because, you know, Cade, PlumpJack.
PlumpJack has a Syrah.
Oh, yeah.
We made Syrah, this PlumpJack Syrah at Cade, actually. So I worked with a Syrah there, but mostly the focus was Bordeaux varietals, and certainly at Bryant Family. So that was a whole new thing for me to learn. But I always, like, the first wines that I really got into, aside from like Italian stuff, the first stuff that really got me excited was Chateauneuf.
Oh, yeah.
Chateauneuf du Pape. Wines from Chateauneuf du Pape really were compelling to me. So the idea of working with Grenache, the idea of working with Syrah, that was really exciting. And I worked with Helen's Syrahs for her own label, Keplinger.
Mm-hmm.
She at the time, I think she has Cabernet now too, but at the time it was just Syrah and Grenache, Mourvèdre. So working with her stuff, I had that experience, but it was a whole new world for me and a lot more, honestly, exciting to me than working with Cab.
Mm-hmm.
Cab was kind of, and especially, you know, Bryant Family, I'm so thankful for my experience there, and they're great. They're great people. I still am friends with them. But when you go a place like Bryant, my role was not to like reinvent the wheel.
No, it's like we get 98 to 100 points. Don't fuck with our wine.
This is what we do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you know, and like I'm not gonna go in there and be like, let's do some whole cluster Cabernet, you know. It was like, there's kind of I wouldn't say recipe. It's a lot more dynamic than that,
Sure.
but there's a specific way of doing things, and you learn that, and it's a great honor to do it. But then it's kind of like, I had a blank slate with Force Majeure. It's like, let's just do a whole bunch of different things and let's see how it turns out. And it took a few years, and I'm learning every year, but now I feel like I've got a pretty good handle specifically on the Red Mountain site, and I know how it behaves and what it's going to do. I can predict it a little better. Areas like the North Fork, I don't know. It's a total question mark. Like, what's the fruit going to be like? What's the profile going to be like? I don't know. We'll find out. Yeah. And then beyond that, it's like, then what type of oak do you use and how much, and, you know, how long's the élevage and all these kinds of things that we just have to figure out, which I love, but it takes time. It takes so much time. So there's no way to fast track it. I always say that it takes, you know, 5 vintages to like start to learn a site. Like, what's this vineyard do? You know, because every year the weather's a little different. Then you have to pay attention to, like, does it do well with whole cluster or not so much? What's the skin thickness like? What are the seeds like? What's the tannin profile like? Is it really soft? Is it really supple, or is it really powerful and muscular? And that all informs what you do with your oak treatment, your oak program, and the way you ferment the wines, temperatures and extraction protocols and all that kind of stuff. And like, what are you trying to achieve with the mouthfeel, and how do you get there? So every site's a little different. So it takes a long time.
So you mentioned that Bryant, there was a specific process, and you learn it, and then you apply it, and you just make sure that the process that has been in place and works. What would you say? What was the winemaking culture? How did the winemaking culture up in Washington State differ from your experiences in Napa Valley?
I think Washington, there's a big willingness to just try different things. Part of that comes from, in Napa, the fruit is really expensive. You know, the wines are really expensive. Mm-hmm. So the willingness to sort of experiment, or the ability to experiment and try things, is more limited because a lot of money's at stake. So if you screw something up because you're fucking around with it, that's a lot of money that is jeopardized. In Washington, the fruit costs are less, and it allows more people to get in the game. So you see people doing pet nat, you see people doing, lighter more natural winemaking, for lack of a better term. And the term natural wine I don't really like.
Yeah, neither do I.
Yeah,
It's
but there's just a lot more dynamism, I think, across the spectrum of winemaking in Oregon and Washington than what I've seen in like Napa, for example. But that's because Napa also, and that's not, it's not a complete like blanket statement. I
right.
mean, to apply it to everyone in Napa, but like in general.
Yeah, I've said this before, and then people DM me. I'm like, no, dude, I'm not saying. I know there's still some family-owned smaller wineries in Napa, but but money has hurt Napa. I mean, people come in, they make a lot of money in fucking Silicon Valley, and they want a 100-point wine, and it helps drive up the price of the whole thing. You know, it's a part of it's a monster, not the whole Napa Valley, everybody, but part of it is a monster. You know?
No, that's right.
Like you said, so people. That's why these other regions. That's why Santa Barbara became a region. That's why Paso Robles, because people had to find places to find fruit they could afford to work with.
Mm-hmm. And Paso is awesome. I love so many of the wines down there, and the people are great. Yeah. I love Napa too. I mean, I'm not bashing Napa. I love it. I still love Napa. This
is facts. You go look at fruit prices and land prices in Napa, and it's gonna be prohibitive to more people than.
I mean, you gotta sell. If you buy land now, I don't know that you can sell a wine for less than $200 a bottle and make any money and make it sustainable. It's not really
and that's just math. That's not
that's just math. It's not ego or anything.
Yeah, it's not ego.
It's pure numbers.
That's like I know how to do math.
It's gotta be a business that's profitable, right? No one wants to go into business to lose money all the time. So to do that in Napa, it just costs a lot of money, and then that I feel like it's a logical thing. Like if more money's at stake, it limits creativity a bit, because you're going to sell what you know you can sell, and people know what they're going to get, and you're not going to make a pet nat with Cabernet from Napa Valley. You know what I mean?
When when are companies they're most disruptive? When they're first starting out, right? And then it comes to a point, and you hit a point of critical mass. You're like, no, we got it. We're profitable. We turn this right. And then so that's just all that is. Everybody.
Yeah.
Your wife Carrie also is in the bit, like you mentioned her earlier. She started opening bottles for you back when you were in Arizona. You met in Tucson.
Yep.
So how did she feel about the move? Was she all down for the move? And
she was all for it. I mean, we made the decision together. You know, it was like, are we gonna do this? And it was really exciting. And she's been involved with Force Majeure, and she's involved with everything else since the beginning. And she really keeps me organized. She does a totally different side of the business than I do, and something that's just as important as anything that I'm doing. And she's really good at it. Her background was restaurants, and she managed some restaurants in Napa Valley, some of Cindy Paulson's restaurants, Mustards, and Go Fish, which is no longer there. But then she transitioned into the wine business with the Chapelets, and she worked with me at Bryant Family for a time, and then she started consulting, and now she's with Force Majeure, and she's the GM of the Walls, and kind of Pasha was her brainchild, and it's been fun to get that brand out and rolling too.
Yeah. So
and Weathereye, she's helped with that.
Yeah. So you got Force Majeure, and in that case you sent me, there was Force Majeure wines, Pravada, which
Pravada is a good one.
Good Lord,
I love making that wine.
Blow me away. And then Holocene. So let's talk about. So Holocene, was this your first time with Pinot Noir?
Yeah. So I knew I looked at not just going to Washington, but I actually looked at Willamette Valley as well. We considered that as an option, and I poked around. I had some friends like Drew Voigt. He was the winemaker at a winery called Shea.
Yeah.
He was there at the time when I visited the Willamette in 2011, and now he has Harper Voigt, and he has some other clients too. But I reached out to him, and he was like, in Willamette, it's pretty limited unless you're going to start your own thing. Especially if you're not from here, it can be a little bit like hard to penetrate, especially being from Napa and Bryant Family specifically. Like people might not welcome you with open arms. And I was like, okay, I understand. Unfortunate, but like that's how it can be sometimes. And so I ended up going, to Force Majeure, and I'm really happy that was the decision that I made. But knew that I wanted to work with Pinot Noir.
Okay.
So the easiest way to do that was just to start my own little quote unquote side project at the time. And I haven't really grown it since 2015 was my first vintage doing that. 14 was my first vintage in Washington. Started Holocene in 15. Kept it super small. And it's still small. This year I'm adding some vineyard sites, so I'm going to try and expand it. I tried to do that in 2020, and then the fires hit, and everything just kind of went to shit that year in terms of getting fruit. I got some fruit, but not everything I was hoping to get. But I love Burgundy, and I love Oregon Pinot. And I think I've been able, through Drew and some other connections now, like Grant Coulter from 100 Sons and some others, Mikey Etzel, been able to get linked up with some good vineyard sites in the Willamette, which is a really fascinating growing region with a lot of diverse AVAs, sub-AVAs, and yeah, I love it. But I'm just keeping Holocene focused on Pinot Noir for now, for the most part. That's the plan.
Okay. And so you're also at the Walls.
Yep. Started that in 2019.
Okay. So was that your first time making Chardonnay? Because I know they have.
It was. Yeah. Yeah, I talked to a lot of people, tasted a lot of Chardonnays. I love Chardonnay. I prefer, Ravenot and Davosat.
Yeah, you like Chablis.
Yeah, I love Chablis. Yeah. And, the French Creek Chardonnay you get tends to be a little more textural, a little bit riper, but it's still a really good site for Chardonnay. And so that's been really fun for me to work with that. And Mike Martin, the owner of the Walls, has been really open to me experimenting with the Chardonnay there. We made the black Chardonnay in 2019, which is an oxidative style.
All right.
It's still super fresh, but it got no sulfur. I pressed it really hard and just let it turn black, and that kind of falls out, and it resurrects and comes back to life. And
that's that whole scene in
oh, you're talking about that movie,
the Napa movie,
Bottle Shock.
Bottle Shock. Yeah. Where
it's dark, and then it comes back. Yeah,
it's crazy.
But it's kind of an old school Burgundian way of making wine. That was just how you did it. It was before people are adding a bunch of stuff to press the juice that's coming out and trying to keep it from oxidizing. No, I was like, we'll go the opposite way and let it get oxidized intentionally. And I think we're going to do that again this year. It's kind of an experiment, and we're learning every time we do it. I did it in 19, and then we skipped the last couple of vintages with it because I wanted to just kind of see how it goes, and now we're really happy with it. So this year we'll do it again. And now Mike owns French Creek Vineyard too, so I can get a little more fruit and have material to play with. So to do some exciting, interesting things besides just straightforward winemaking, which I think is great, but it's always nice to have something to experiment with every year, so you're learning something. Mm-hmm. And again, that goes back to what I was saying before, where in some places where the fruit's really expensive, you just can't do that because you don't want to risk it if something doesn't turn out good.
No pet nets coming out of Burgundy, France right now. You know what I mean? It's one of those deals.
Yeah.
What about and then Cruel Summer, first time making a rosé?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And who did you go to for inspiration on that one?
I didn't go to anyone specifically for that. My reference points were more of Provençal rosé, very, very. I knew I wanted very, very light color, almost gray, just very faint, really good acid, and very finesse driven, and really super refreshing and crispy. And I knew, what fruit we'd been using was Grenache and Mourvedre. So just giving that Grenache a little bit of skin contact to get just that pale pink color. And I just do native yeast on that and let it do its thing, and no oak, just stainless steel. So it was more about there was no secrets there, having to learn. It was just rosé is pretty straightforward. It's not hard to make. It's pretty easy. To make that style is. Some people though, I see some rosés and I'm like, I don't. For me, like really dark extracted rosé, I don't. Not a fan. Not a fan. So, go for the really light, elegant, citrusy, stone fruity kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And so you had actually said earlier that your wife Carrie was the driving force, and I didn't want to use force because of force majeure, but behind PASXA. So talk about the PASXA. Project.
PASXA. We kind of sat down with Mike Martin, who owns the walls, and we were sort of spitballing some ideas and thinking about an estate project that we might start. Because I was telling Mike, it's really good if you can own land, and you can control the farming. You can kind of tell a story of that place. You find a really good site. So we started the PASXA brand kind of around that concept. The first couple of vintages are from purchased fruit from River Rock, but in the meantime, Mike acquired Rock Garden Vineyard, and then we've planted another vineyard that's nearby. So the whole acreage for PASXA right now is about 28 acres planted. But the genesis of that was this desire to kind of do something that's sustainable farming, really great estate winemaking, and utilize fruit from the Rocks District specifically for that. So Carrie kind of conceptualized the name. The name is the Umatilla Native American tribe from the area. They called Walla Walla Pashapa as like place of the sunflowers. And so the word Pasha is tied into the history of the Walla Walla region. And I think it's the balsam root sunflower. And then her son, Nick, designed the label. He drew this flower that's on it. And he's a great artist. He lives in Portland. And he did that. And Carrie picked the bottle. And then
I love
the bottle's cool. And then like the letter,
bottle.
all the labels are letter pressed, and everything's applied by hand. All of them are hand labeled, hand waxed, and everything. There's nothing. It takes a long time to do it all, but it's gorgeous at the end of the day. So that was kind of where that whole thing came from. It was kind of, Mike letting us take an idea and run with it. From the winemaking side, I conceptualized all the winemaking, like here's what we're going to make, here's how we're going to make it. And then Carrie did all the branding for that whole project, all of the brainstorming for that. And she'd bounce ideas off of me, concepts, and I'd say, I like this, don't like that. And then you just kind of send it back and forth until you're happy. But we did it all ourselves. We didn't hire like a firm or a company to like do design for us. Carrie does a lot of graphic design. She's really good at it. So.
Yeah. I actually want to go back. I forgot with the walls because it's Mike's project, but you also work with Iberian varietals. You guys, you have Tempranillo and Semblance and Tentacao.
Yeah, I've got a little Tempranillo with Force Majeure too. I don't know if you've had that. I should have to send you a bottle. There was for Force Majeure at the Red Mountain Estate Vineyard. There was a 0.3 or 0.4 acre block of Tempranillo, and I was kind of annoyed by it when I first got up there. I was like, why is this here? Like, what? Like, what are we going to do with this? And then I made wine with it, and I was like, holy shit, this is really good. Like, okay, Tempranillo is a thing there, it can be really amazing. So the Tempranillo I work with for the walls is from the Rocks. It's from a Stony Vine Vineyard. And it's totally different animal than what's from Red Mountain. It's a weird, I think it's awesome. It's weird. It's funky, and it's rocks. It's got the Rocks terroir, right? So it's like black olive, and it's wild, and I really like it. But one of the things I've really enjoyed has been working with the Portuguese varietals. So we have Suzão, Tentacao, Touriga Nacional.
Oh, and Touriga, I forgot.
Yep, Touriga. Yeah, and that's been really fun to work with. I wanted to get more of it. The problem is like not many people are growing it. So actually at French Creek that Mike owns now, we're budding things over to Portuguese, and we're going to add Baga, and we're going to put Tinta Franca in there. So like having even more Portuguese varietals in the future, they're going to be really fun to see how they come out. And we're thinking about doing like a higher end Touriga, just Touriga bottling, because Touriga is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now it's one of the Bordeaux varietals,
I was gonna
accepted
say,
Bordeaux varietals, and
as a winemaker, is your experimentation, because in Bordeaux it's for climate change, like they're looking for
Right.
different. Is that how is Walla Walla and where the sites you work at, how they've been affected by climate change?
I think it's affecting everything, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we see hotter years, we see wildfires.
Yeah.
Now, where we are, we're a little bit protected from wildfires, at least from smoke and fires being really, really close to us, because we don't have the big timber right around us like you do in Napa Valley or Paso or Willamette, you know. But we get smoke that can get carried in. It's been carried in from British Columbia, from the Willamette Valley, from California. It can get funneled in, and you can have smoke in the air for like a month, you know. And it can be anywhere from where it's kind of mildly irritating to where it's dangerous for your health, you know. And I've seen it across the spectrum. And that's something that used to not happen. And now it happens, seems like every year. It's like, okay, last year we didn't really have it, but it was more of like an exception to not have it. Temperatures going up, drier growing seasons, less rain. Like last year was really dry, and this year we'll see. We had a really good snowpack, which is awesome, but going into spring, what's the precipitation going to be like? I don't know. And I'm hoping that it's not. Last year in the spring, everything just suddenly got hot. Just like there was not much of a spring, just kind of went from winter to summer. This year, I hope we have that gradual like warming during the spring, and then we always have a hot summer. But it's been, it's a concern. It's a concern for everybody. And I remember one of the things I was looking at when I decided to leave California was NASA's climate prediction maps. And they had, I remember looking at like Napa and Sonoma on their map and said like by 2050, and they were like red. Like don't
like literally smoking.
Yeah, it was like everything moved. The growing regions like moved toward the coast and north.
Yeah.
Oregon, even like Willamette, they were saying maybe in the future it's Cabernet Sauvignon there, not Pinot.
Wow.
I don't know. We'll see. And then in Washington, a whole bunch of new areas are possible to grow grapes in. So I was kind of like, that's looking like the direction things are going in. You know, we can hope that that's not going to be how it pans out necessarily for the sake of California, but it's not looking great.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's rough.
It's rough. Yeah, it's rough for everybody. And and we're fortunate in that we can irrigate in some places, you know, in France. If you're in the AOPs, like you're not allowed, you can't irrigate, you know. So I think it could end up being a whole new world for them over there, having to figure out how to keep things going moving forward. If things continue, be growing Pinot Noir in England, more of it.
No, I know. Like people go, oh my God. When people say, oh my God, Rieslings from Germany are dry. I'm like, yeah, it's great. I love them, but why are they dry? Why are they able to get them dry now? You know what I mean? Like, why does Long Island wine taste better? Because it's getting riper. You know what I mean? Like people like everybody gets excited, but I'm like, and it's cool. It's a yes and. It's like, because it's not cool. It's because everything's getting hot. That's why all these places where the wine was like, we have wineries for fun. Yeah, now they're like, oh shit, this wine's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's everything's changing. I think the challenge for us, especially a place like Red Mountain's already hot.
Yeah.
And it's gonna get hotter. It's like, okay, how high can our alcohols go? Let's keep them. Let's hope that, you know, I think doing things like being on top of your farming for one thing can help mitigate some of the heat, and then finding new places that maybe you're, instead of planting on a south slope, you plant on the north side, you know, and things like that to try to keep it. Like with Weathereye, you know, Ryan Johnson he's the vineyard manager and kind of brain behind the Weathereye development. He has planted, so they're up on Red Mountain at the very top. They're kind of above Force Majeure, but he's planted a lot of stuff that is on the north side, so it doesn't get the same intense sun in the afternoon that the south side gets, and as a result, longer hang time, different tannin profiles, and a lot of really great freshness. So I think even just small things, even if you're within an AVA, just making small different decisions when you're putting a vineyard in, and actually thinking about it rather than just be like, oh, we're just gonna throw some vines in the ground and they'll do what they do. Being more thoughtful in the approach, I think, can mitigate some of the climate change symptoms that we experience.
And speaking of Weathereye, what is that? What does he plant up there? What type of wines are you going to be producing for him out there?
Yeah, we've got Rhone varietals and Bordeaux varietals and a little Tempranillo. And then he's, Weathereye, we just released the first wines finally, like a couple of weeks ago. Took a long time to get permits, only because of like the COVID thing, and just things got stack of papers on someone's desk in the government, like waiting for them to get our permit to us. So now, anyway, the wines are out there. And then Weathereye also sells fruit to a handful of Washington wineries, and all the wines are really good. And Ryan's like one of the most passionate and driven vineyard managers I've ever worked with, and he's super creative. So when you come out, I should show you Weathereye, and it'll kind of blow your mind, all the things that he's thought of and all the things that he's trying and all the things he's done out there. So that's a really fun project that's really just starting to, and I don't mean like project, it's a thing, like it's going to grow, but we're just getting things rolling. But the focus on that is, and we've done some really good whites too, Marsanne, Roussanne. We have Claret, Viognier, Grenache Blanc. So playing with a lot of whites. I've been doing a lot more white wines and trying to figure out where the best fruit is for that, how to treat those in the cellar. Just trying to coax more out of the white programs, because like in Force Majeure, I've only had Viognier, so now I've got with PASXA, with the walls, with Weathereye, just more things I can work with. That's really exciting on the white varietal side. So I really love Rhone whites. So that's kind of a focal point for the Weathereye program. And then, like Grenache is a big piece of what we're doing with Weathereye and Syrah.
Very cool.
So I'll have to get you those wines.
I look forward to it. So
it's a beautiful song.
Yeah. So all these different projects you got going on, or projects and or duties, however you want to phrase that. What are you most excited for, man? In the upcoming years.
Yeah. I'm excited for, I could itemize it, like the North Fork Vineyard coming online. I've got a couple other little projects coming down the pipeline. One of the things I really like just in general about being up there is it feels like a bit of a blank slate. There's a lot of opportunity to create and not just to like steward things, but to create and drive what's going to the definition of going to be the definition of the region. There's people that like Christophe at Cayuse who've been doing incredible work for a long time, and Leonetti and Ryan Van and more. But I think there's still room to experiment. There's still untapped areas that we haven't quite discovered or coaxed out everything that we can get from them, or different expressions of those places. So for me, the opportunity to be kind of on the cutting edge, quote unquote, on those things is really exciting. That's in general just something that I'm really excited about, beyond getting the different wines out there into the world. And I'm always kind of looking for interesting land. I think everything kind of starts with the vineyard. We know that. It's kind of cliche to say it, but it's true. So finding real sites that are going to lend themselves most to being making outstanding wines, I think discovering those is really fun. I really enjoy that. And then I love when people get to actually, taste and enjoy the finished product too. So it's a long game though, it takes so much time. You find a piece of land, put vines in. It's 5 years before you have a wine to give somebody out of it.
I was going to ask you that, because but people don't get like
takes a long time.
It takes a minute, like at least 5 years, right, before you get some.
4 if for a white, maybe like 4 years, but still. And then I mean that's just like first harvest to bottle, maybe 5 years, and then really it's a decade before the vineyard starts to even out, and
How do people stay in business?
I don't know. You gotta have money to like see you through those few years, because otherwise it's like, it's not like there's nothing else like it where you have so much money out. It takes a while before you start seeing anything coming back, so you got to be able to withstand that.
Shit,
yep.
It's like going to college.
Yeah,
you spend all this money.
Yep.
For 4 years. Yeah. Exactly.
Man, it's crazy how expensive college is getting for people.
Oh my God, we had Gary Vee on, and you've heard that one.
Yep.
And I don't disagree with him on college.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who spent a lot of money, and took a big hit because I defaulted on my loans. I don't care.
Right.
It's paid off, but but anyway, it took a big hit.
Yeah.
And so it is crazy, but that is like, but there was no bottle of wine for me when I paid off my student loans. At least there's some wine at the end of that rainbow, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope so.
So, man, I mean, like being a winemaker and places you've been, places you've got to hone your craft. But going way back, like, is there a specific bottle? And it could have been with your brother. I knew you mentioned Italian wines with your brother and Cade, but was there a bottle of wine? What was the bottle of wine? I was like, just like you're like, oh my God, I really get wine. Did you have that recollection?
Yeah, I mean, I had a bottle of Clos de Pop from Chateauneuf a long time ago. I don't remember what vintage it was, but I just remember that bottle kind of blew my mind. And I had a bottle of Holocene as well that I felt like, oh my God, if I could ever make something that was even approaching something this good, I could die happy. But the Clos de Pop was kind of the first winery, and I had some actually really good wines from Laurent Charbon too, Domaine Charbon and Chateauneuf also. Mm-hmm. Very lighter style, more kind of Burgundian. Same with Clos de Pop. More a Burgundian sensibility in those wines, more freshness and energy. So those were really, really exciting wines for me. And kind of, I mean, those got me kind of hooked on wanting to learn more and sink my teeth in. Now, since then, I've had, many, 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 many wines, and I have a lot more reference points and database and knowledge and experience. And wines that I love kind of run the gamut. I have a whole spectrum, just like most of us do,
mm-hmm.
That I draw inspiration from. And they could be from people, they could be, modern wines from colleagues of mine, or they can be really old wines sometimes that are just super inspiring. And you wonder, like, how do they do this? How do they achieve this? And constantly rethinking kind of what I'm doing and how I can make wines that are going to be thought of like that someday, and yeah, anyway.
No, that's cool. Oh, see, I drink and know things. You got a project with Jeff Cohn going on?
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Because he calls me all the time.
Oh, really?
I love Jeff. He's so funny. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. He has wanted to make a wine in the rocks, and so he approached me a couple years ago and was kind of like, I'm thinking about getting some fruit. And I said, what? We can make it at FM, no problem. Yeah. It's small, and so I think he's got a name for it now. It'll be the first vintage will be bottled this May, so coming up pretty soon. I'm not sure what his plans are to release it. And then I have that going on, but I have a project with Anne Charlotte from Chateau de la Font de Loup that's going to be coming out. And
so like his project with Gandalf, it's
yeah. This will be the thing with Anne Charlotte. Will be we're going to do it ongoing. So originally it was going to be just a one-off, but now it's going to be. We've been talking want to do this every year. So starting there'll be a 2020 vintage, and then there's nothing in 21 because I was wanting to wait and see how it went. And now it's like, okay, we'll start it again in 2022 and just keep it going every year. So I'm really excited about that, and that kind of takes me back to now having a project in Chateauneuf is kind of full circle for me a bit because those were the first wines that kind of inspired me.
Yeah.
And the opportunity to work with Anne Charlotte, who's awesome, and her estate. And
so that you're making a wine in Chateauneuf.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna have that. I'll have that this fall. Should be
Very
imported.
nice.
I'll have it here. I got to import it, so it's
Yeah.
a little bit more complex than just.
Oh, look at
throw it in a
you
bottle.
getting all Manfred crinkly going down to Chateauneuf.
Hey, I love that guy.
I know.
He's
right?
amazing.
Oh,
Wines are
I
great.
can't wait to try that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
The 2020 is a great vintage too. It was an awesome vintage to start that project. So.
well, that's super cool because we're doing some. I'm going to hospice. I'll see you
Yep.
at hospice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this will come out. We'll have to look at a schedule. But we're Anne Charlotte. We're gonna interview Anne Charlotte.
Oh,
yeah,
you'll love her.
Yeah. Well, Jeff was like, you have to interview Anne Charlotte. She's like, she's the nicest person. Could be the nicest person in the world.
She's hilarious
Yeah.
too. She's really funny. She's got way more personality than I do. She's like she's hilarious. She's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've watched her do seminars, and man, she can just like the whole place is like cracking up. You know, just she's funny.
That's
and
awesome.
She's a great winemaker too.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. I'm glad I went back. I was like, wait, because I didn't know about the Anne Charlotte. That's really cool, man.
Yeah, I haven't really announced it because it's just sort of it's not in bottle yet. You know what I mean? And we just got TTB approval on the label and everything, so there's no there yet, but it will be coming this fall. So super excited.
Really cool. Really cool.
Yeah.
Well, Todd, man, thank you so much for making time to come in the studio. And
Thanks for
during your
having me.
Short time here in New York. My pleasure. Because we've done the IG Live.
Mm-hmm.
When I was building out this thing, that box of wine you sent me, I had never had your wines, and 3 of your wines made time. And this was no bullshit. I was like, fuck. I was just blown away, like literally blown away by the wines.
Thanks, man.
So it was really cool.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks so much. Tell everybody where they can find you, how they can be a part of what you're doing, like all your little, we'll put it in the notes, but like who they should follow on social media, what mailing lists they should get on.
Yeah, there's the Force Majeure. It's you can just Googling it. It's the easiest way to get to the website because Force Majeure website's like fm-wine.com.
Yeah, we'll put so just Google
hyphen.
We'll put it in the show notes, but yeah.
Sometimes with a hyphen, sometimes
Right.
without a hyphen. No. Just Force Majeure, and then there's PASXA, which is another fun one because it has all this special characters, and people are like, "What? I don't know how to pronounce that." I'm like, "Yeah, we just like to do difficult things, make it hard to."
Holocene. Yes.
Holocene. How do you say that? Halocene? Like, no, it's an O. That's the most common one. People call it Halocene. I'm like, no, it's an O. Holocene.
Very hallowed
and
wines.
then there's
though.
the walls, and there's Weathereye Vineyards. So those are all the active projects going on. Just Google any of those; will take you to the website, and then all of them have social media too. So Instagram's a big one. I don't really do Facebook much, but then on Instagram, I'm just Todd, METODD. And there's handles for Weathereye Vineyards.
Yeah, we'll put them
Force
all in the
Majeure.
notes for you
Okay.
guys.
And we do, so we do mailing list. We have limited distribution. Like I'm here this week meeting with a distributor, but the distribution on any of these is fairly limited, so they can be a little bit hard to find. The easiest way is just sign up for the mailing list on each of the websites, and we release the wines a few times a year. And you'll get an email, log in, buy the wines, and then we ship them straight to you. It's pretty straightforward.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yep.
Well, like I said, thanks again, Todd. And for all my listeners out there, don't forget to check out the show notes for each episode. That's where you're going to find all the information we just talked about. Also, we'll talk about the cool wine that Todd didn't bring and and just other things that we discussed. So to all my mavericks, philosophers, deep thinkers, and wine drinkers, and I love it when my guests check off all the boxes, your boy MJ saying peace.